Hello! Happy Wednesday! Welcome to Fun with Decimals with me, Mr. Spencer. Here's where we wave the decimal point. This is my decimal point. We're going to be using all sorts of decimals today. We're going to start with multiplying some decimals. We're going to take a few notes, do a couple of practice problems, and then we're going to move on to dividing with decimals. Awesome! Let's dive on in. So here we go. We are going to summarize all that we have talked about. Oh, I got to move that. My head is cut off. We're going to summarize all that we have talked about with multiplying decimals so far this week. So we are going to say this one sentence, and you're going to want to write this one sentence down so when you have questions, you can refer back to this sentence. When you ask me questions, we can go back to your notes together and learn from our notes. But multiplying decimals is just like multiplying whole numbers. But then we're going to put a dot, dot, dot. So multiplying decimals is just like multiplying whole numbers, except for the decimal. Except for the decimal. Now, so far this week, and I think even possibly some of last week, we've been talking about different strategies about how we can know where the decimal place goes when we multiply by a decimal. So we are multiplying a decimal number by a whole number or an integer. So an integer is just the math word for whole number, right? We've heard that before. Awesome. So we have our decimal number multiplied by our whole number or the integer. So as we begin today, I'd like to challenge you with this math problem. 342 times 4. And then once you've solved that problem, I'm going to give you a second math problem for us to try on your own. 3/42 times 4. So take some time now, solve both of these problems, and then we'll come back together and talk it through all together. Okay, so super quick. Now that you've solved this, 2 times 4 is 8. 4 times 4 is 16. We put our 6 down here, regroup our 1. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 more is 13. So we have 1,368. Awesome. Now let's take a look at this problem on the right. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 4 is 16. Regroup our 1. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1 more is 13. So now we have the same digits we had over here. We had a 1, a 3, a 6, and 8. But if you look at the first number we multiplied, our first factor, on the left side we had 342. On the right side we had 3/42. So now we need to figure out where our decimal place goes. Now, there are a lot of different strategies we could use. You could have done these with dots or area models. You also could have estimated, and my favorite way that we've talked about so far is to estimate. 3/42 is pretty close to 3, right? Absolutely. So then we have 3 times 4, and 3 times 4 I know is 12. So now we need to make our answer somewhere close to 12. Well, 1,368 is nowhere near 12. So we've got to throw in our decimal place. And that decimal place is far too big to use, so I'm just going to use the tip of my pen. So if we put our decimal place right here, we then have 136 and 8/10. 136 is not close to 12. If we put our decimal place here, we would have 13 and 68/100. 13 is pretty close to 12, so I'm going to guess that that's where this is going to go. But I'm going to check right here. If we put our decimal place here, we would have 1 and 368 thousandths. 1 is not close to 12. 13 is much closer to 12, so our decimal place will go right there. Now we're going to pause here and think for just one moment. In a whole number, such as 4, where is the decimal place? Because every number has a decimal place, and we talked about this before when we were adding and subtracting decimals, when we were talking about money earlier on this year. Every whole number has a decimal place. Where is that decimal place? Absolutely, that decimal place is at the end of the whole number. So 4 decimal place. Now that decimal place doesn't change the value. If we put the decimal place before the 4, we'd be saying 4 is equal to 4/10, and that's not the case. So we need to put the decimal place after the 4, at the end of the whole number. So if there is not a decimal place in a number, that's because it's the whole number, and the decimal place goes at the end, on the right side of the whole number. Okay. So the other way we can figure out where the decimal place goes, and this is the super sneaky way to do it, we wouldn't ordinarily talk about this, but because COVID is a thing, I've got to give you the ultimate crash course in math. Since we are squished on some things, I'm going to show you the super sneaky life hack here. We're going to count the total digits, which are just numbers. A digit is just a number, to the right of the decimal places. And that's a parenthesis right there. So we're going to count the total digits, which are just numbers, to the right of the decimal places. And if we're multiplying two things, we will have 2 decimal places every time. If it's a whole number, we're going to put our decimal place at the end on the right side. Okay, so let's see this in action. If we have 4, there are 0 digits, 0 numbers to the right of the decimal place. We've got 0 there. On the right side of our first decimal place in 3 and 42/100ths, there are 2 digits there. So there's 2 digits to the right of the decimal place on our first number and 0 on our second number. So 2 plus 0 is 2. So now we would start our decimal place on the right side and move it over 2 spots to the left. Moving 2 places to the left, it ends right here between the 3 and the 6. Now that is a super sneaky life hack way to do that. We wouldn't normally teach you that right now, but because we're in our crazy COVID times and having to squeeze in some extra things, that is the other way it'll work. Just another method that you could use to figure out where the decimal place goes. Okay, so let's try one on your own right now. 324 and 1/10 times 2. Okay, solve this one, and then we'll check our work all together. All right, here is my answer. Check your work against mine. Our digits were 6, 4, 8, 2. And then our decimal place goes right here. And we know that because our decimal place next to the 2 is right there, so there are 0 digits here. There's 1 digit to the right of the decimal place up here. 0 plus 1 is 1, so we've got to put our decimal place 1 spot from the right. We also could, again, estimate if we rounded this or estimated 324 and 1/10 to be close to 300. 300 times 2 is 600, so we would need our answer to be close to 600. Awesome. All right, if you have more questions about multiplying multiplying decimals, let me know and we can practice those tomorrow. We are going to move on to some dividing of decimals. So I'm going to flip our page here, and I'm turning my notebook on the side. This is going to give us extra space going side to side, and I put my rings at the top because that way they're not hitting my hands. And then we're going to make this place value chart just like we had when we were adding and subtracting decimals, when we were multiplying decimals. We're going to use the same chart for dividing decimals. Now our color of the day for our decimal place is red, so I'm going to put a red decimal place right here. Of course, if you're using one color, that's completely okay. If you prefer a different color and you're using colors, that is okay as well. But now that we have our decimal place set, we know that the place just to the left of the decimal place is the ones place. Moving right, we have the tenths place. And then we have the hundredths place. And then we are going to take on our first problem. Now make sure you've got this chart drawn, and you're going to take all of these, solve all of these problems with us as we go. Our first problem is 9/10, which is 0.9. We read that as 9/10 divided by 3. Okay, so when we are using this place value chart, we've been drawing dots. And in order to represent this first number in our place value chart, we're going to need 9 dots because our digit is 9. And our 9 dots are going to go in the tenths column because they are 9/10. Now I know the answer we're going to get, so I'm doing 3 rows of 3. You could put them in any order. I just know what our answer is going to be, so that's helping us set it up a little easier to see our answer. So now we are dividing this into 3 groups. We're taking our decimal and dividing it into 3 groups. Now, just like if we were taking a whole number and dividing it into 3 groups, we're going to take the dots in our tenths and divide them into 3 equal groups. One group, 2 group, 3 groups. And I'm going to ask us how many are in each group. Absolutely, there are 3 in each group, and they are in the tenths column, so we will label that 3/10. Now, because we are all super smart mathematicians, we are also going to go ahead and label this, or write this answer in decimal form, 0.33 tenths. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. How are you feeling? So far, so good? Awesome. We are going to do another simpler one, and then we'll take on 2 tough problems. I'm going to draw my line across here to separate my problems. If only I could do that in real life. To draw a line and my problems go away. That was a joke. Ha 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 ha. I hope you found it as funny as I did. Okay, and we are going to do 8/10, which is 0.88 tenths divided by 4. (0.88 divided by 4. So one more time, I'm going to need to start with 8 dots in our tenths column. And this time, just to make it more realistic, I'm putting 5 dots because I usually go in groups of 5 in the tenths column. And then in my first row, and then 3 more is 8. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I need to divide it into 4 groups. And so I've got this group here. And I know as I'm thinking this through, if I have to divide 8 into 4 equal groups, 8 divided by 4 is 2, so I'm going to have to put 2 in each group. Okay, so there are indeed 2 in each group. And then each group of 2 is in what column? Our answers are in the tenths column, so we have 2 tenths. How do we write 2 tenths as a decimal? Write it down there. See if you wrote down the same thing I did, 0.2. We read that, of course, as 2 tenths, but as I'm saying it, it's 0.2. Awesome. All right. Look, so far so good. I love it. I love it. I love it. Awesome. We're going to take on 2 more problems today, and they're going to get tougher. So I hope you're ready. So we are now going to do 24 hundredths divided by 6. And we're going to draw that in here as 24 hundredths, so that is 2 tenths and then 4 hundredths. You got your dots. I need one thing quickly here, and I don't have it. So we're going to use some scissors. We're going to pretend my scissors are my 2/10. Now we have 2 in the tens column, so when we were multiplying, we would make copies in the tens column of the tens, and we make copies in the hundredths column of the hundredths, right? Absolutely. Well, if we were adding and subtracting, we'd do the same thing. We'd add our hundredths column, we'd add our tens column. But when we're dividing, can we divide our 2/10 by 6? If we had 2 pairs of scissors that are going to represent our tenths, can we split these 2 pairs of scissors into 6 groups? No, we can't, because we can't evenly break it apart into 6 pieces, 6 groups. That wouldn't do any good. We could not share 2 scissors among 6 people in a COVID time where we can't share them. So we need to regroup these 2/10 into hundredths. So we're going to regroup these. I'm going to regroup in green. I'm going to put them over there. So 2/10 becomes 20 hundredths. So now I've got to draw in 20 hundredths. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so how many total hundredths do we have now? We have a total, we had 4 and we added 20 more, so we now have 24 hundredths. Now we need to divide those 24 into 6 equal groups. As you think about how many would go into each group, it might help you to think, okay, 24 divided by 6 is what? I need 6 groups. Okay, I'm going to put 4 in each group because I know 4 times 6 is 24. So if I need 6 groups, I must need 4 in each group. All right, so each group, we split our 24 dots into 6 groups. Each group has 4 dots in it. So our answer is going to equal 4. Now, so far we have had tenths and tenths, but this time our answer is not going to be 4/10 because our dots are not in the tenths column. Our dots, our groups are in what column? Absolutely, they are in the hundredths column. So we're going to label that 4 hundredths. And we write that as 0.04, 0.04, but of course we read it as 4 hundredths. Awesome. Looking good. I love it. So I'm going to draw this line across here, and we are going to take on our last problem of the day. (32 hundredths) divided by 8. (32 hundredths) divided by, I wrote down the wrong problem. Let me make that into a boxy 8. There we go. 32 hundredths divided by 8. So that is an 8. I know it's a boxy. I want you to pause this video, take on this problem, and when you have solved it, come on back and we will talk it out. Welcome back. I am so glad you have an answer. Let's see if we did it the same way. If you did it a different way and then got the same solution, super cool. I am going to show you a trick at the end that helped me understand this a little bit better. If you did the same thing, awesome. If you got the right answer but not sure how you got it, come see me tomorrow and I can help you out. But we have 32 hundredths. Now, I started with 3 dots in the tenths column and 2 dots in the hundredths column because we have 3 tenths, 2 hundredths. But then I knew I could not divide my 3 tenths by 8. It was not going to give me a whole number, and I did not like that. So I regrouped, and I regrouped in green, and I regrouped my 3 dots over to my hundredths column, and my 3/10 became 30 hundredths. So now I've got to draw 30 dots in here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And then I need to divide those into 8 groups. Well, I knew, okay, 32 divided by 8 is 4. So the chances are there are going to be 4 in each group. So I went, here's my 4 here, 4 here, 4 here. Now my groups don't look super pretty, and I'm super sorry about that. If you have your groups in a different order, that is completely okay. But each of my groups has the same number of dots in it, and there are 4. Now, what place value are these in? Well, all my groups, my 8 groups, are in, as you can see up at the top of your notes, in the hundredths column. So our answer is 400. And we write that as 0.04. Of course, we read that one more time as 400ths, because our 4 is in the hundredths column, the hundredths place. So we read that number as 400ths, but in order for us to all write down the same thing, we say 0.04. Awesome. Are y'all ready for this life hack? I'm ready for this life hack. Let's take a look at it. So we have 32 hundredths, and we read that as 32 hundredths. So I put my problem in this hundredths column, 32 hundredths divided by 8, and 32 hundredths divided by 8 was 4. So my answer was 4, but 4 what? It was 4 hundredths, because that 4 took place in the hundredths place. So 34 divided by 8 hundredths. Sorry, 34 divided by 8 was 4, and it was 4 hundredths. Awesome. As we wrap up today, I have 4 problems for you to do. If you need to pause this here, I will zoom out, make sure everything can be seen. There we go. Pause the video here as long as you need to. I'll smile. All right, welcome back. And I will give you your 4 practice problems to do. They are not going to be super hard, I promise, but you will be able to do them. So our practice problem number 1, our orange problem, is 0.06, so that is 6 hundredths, divided by 2. Your second problem is going to be this. 0.6 divided by 6. So 6/10 divided by 6. Your third problem is going to be 0.12 hundredths divided by 3. And then your fourth problem is 0.048. So 48 thousandths divided by 4. There are your 4 practice problems. Once you are through with those 4 practice problems, you are good for today. Tomorrow we are going to practice. We're going to continue learning through a recorded lesson on some more division practice problems. Continue talking about dividing decimals. We're going to compare some relationships, and then we're going to spend some time practicing multiplying and dividing decimals. As always, if you have any questions, let me know. I am about to get caught up on all of my all my Schoology messages that I have not responded to yet. So if you message me in the last 24 hours, you will be getting a response right now. Y'all have an awesome day. I love y'all. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.